to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Let's start with this. Well, Cecilia Brækhus, the women's undisputed welterweight champion, is planning her ring return for 2019. And she touched on certain subjects that have been floating around. Certain subjects like a Chris Cyborg crossover fight, and certain subjects like a Katie Taylor fight. And the latter really caught my attention. You know, I've seen people have discussions on just that subject, but I've never quite chimed in on it myself. And I'm about to make those reasons known to you, the listeners. Here's what's going on. You know, Katie Taylor is very accomplished given her short professional career, because it really got started not that long ago. In turn, Cecilia Brækhus is the most accomplished woman boxer in the history of women boxers. Those things in mind, these are two fighters that command a lot of prestige independent of each other. But the notion of them either meeting in the middle at 140 pounds or Katie Taylor jumping up their 2 divisions to meet Cecilia at 147. I'm not a fan of either of those propositions. I am not a fan of a Katie Taylor versus Cecilia Brækhus fight, and here is why. We know that Katie Taylor wants to become an undisputed champion in the lightweight division. And we also know that Cecilia Brækhus is currently the undisputed champion of the welterweight division. But for this fight to command the kind of prestige that they're shooting for, there would have to be world titles on the line. So then, you're presented with 2 scenarios.
Just 2.
Only 2 possible scenarios for this fight
to come into fruition,
to command the level of prestige that it should. One way would have to be for Cecilia to come down to 140 and Katie to move up to 140, thereby allowing both fighters to meet each other in the middle. But therein lies a dilemma. Neither of those fighters hold world titles in the 140-pound division. So if they met up there, it wouldn't be for any belts at all. And that kind of takes away from the prestige, doesn't it? I mean, Katie's a unified champion at 135 and Cecilia's the undisputed champion at 147. But what's the point in meeting at 140 if it ain't even no belts on the line? Then where's the legacy? Where's the luster? Where is the prestige? In that division, there are currently 4 world champions in that weight class, 3 of which Katie Taylor has already beaten. WBC champion Jessica McCaskill, WBA champion Anaí Este Sanchez, and IBF champion Victoria Bustos, with the 4th world title going to Cristina Leonardo II, the only one of the 4 champions that Katie hasn't fought. But those things in mind, you've got to look at it this way. If all the world titles are spoken for, then a fight between Katie and Cecilia at 140 pounds anywhere in the near future, it would lack the prestige, it would lack the luster, because the world titles aren't on the line.
It wouldn't be.
In order for it to really come off, you know, Katie would have to first move up to 140, collect those belts in that weight class, then the fight could actually be about something. It could be for something, that you guys are meeting each other in the middle, but the world titles are on the line, in which case, we're not there yet. Katie Taylor's still trying to become an undisputed champion at 135.
She's not done yet.
And what's worse is, meeting in the middle might be essential. You know, that Cecilia comes down, Katie goes up, putting both fighters on equal footing with each other, because the only other alternative would have to be for Katie to jump up there to 147 pounds. Time and time again, in recent memory, we've seen fighters make a jump like that. We've seen fighters that have far more professional fights than Katie Taylor make that kind of a jump. And every single time we've seen it in recent memory, it was disastrous. We saw Mikey Garcia do it very recently with Errol Spence. We saw Kell Brook do it with Gennady Golovkin. We saw Amir Khan do it with Canelo Alvarez. And we saw Guillermo Rigondeaux do it with Vasyl Lomachenko. It is a statistical fact that most of the time a fighter does this, it doesn't work out very well, because that fighter has not had the chance to acclimate, to feel out the division, to develop and hone their skills in that weight class before they take someone on the likes of a Cecilia Brækhus. So the idea that either they meet in the middle at 140 for no belts at all, or Katie goes up there and makes the same disastrous move that Mikey Garcia just made, either one of those scenarios are not scenarios that I am a fan of. I do not support the idea that Katie should either jump up there to 147 so that the fight could be about something, so that the fight could actually have belts on the line, or that they meet in the middle but there aren't any belts on the line at all. Rest assured, for the fight to be as monumental, as prestigious, as historic as they would want it to be, as they would want to bill it. In order for it to be that way, it would have to be that Katie jumps up there to 147 pounds from, I guess, 135. She would have to jump up there where Cecilia Brækhus holds all the world titles, and this is provided that she can hang on to them because, you know, she's going to have title defenses. I mean, this isn't a fight that's anywhere near being made. It's nowhere near coming off. But in order for that to happen, Katie would have to jump there to 147. Cecilia would have to be able to continue her reign as an undisputed champion. And bear in mind, you know, she's very accomplished. She's a great fighter. I'm a fan of her. But she's no spring chicken, and she's only getting older. But that is a requisite. All the world titles would still have to be in her possession for Katie to fight for them in order for this fight to be about something, for it to be about legacy, for it to be about prestige. Because neither one of y'all got belts at 140, so even if you're both willing to meet in the middle, fight still ain't gonna be about shit. I'll tell you the truth, that I think that both of those fighters really aren't even on a collision course. It's just that people are getting acquainted. People are just now getting acquainted with many of the great female fighters in the sport of boxing. And two of the ones that stand out the most just so happen to be Katie and Cecilia. So naturally, people play with the idea of a matchup. People play with the idea of what would a fight like that look like. It's a natural impulse. But I'll be the first to say that I wasn't a fan of Mikey versus Spence. I wasn't a fan of Brooke versus Triple G, and I wasn't a fan of Khan versus Canelo. And the only reason I was a fan of the Rigo fight is because, well, lest we forget, the initial talks for that fight, you know, when those initial talks started, there weren't two divisions between them. It was actually just one, when Rigo was at 122 and Loma was at 126. So that felt more like a fight that was long overdue. But as soon as I saw that now there are two divisions between those two guys, it became painfully obvious to me that Rigo's going to lose that fight. So when I see more or less the same kind of thing going on here, that Katie would have to jump up 2 weight classes and dare to be great and take Cecilia's titles, you'll excuse me for saying that I'm not a fan of fighters biting off more than they can chew when they really shouldn't. When they're moving ahead of schedule, I'm not a fan of that. I think that these two fighters, Katie and Cecilia, are not on a collision course. I think that, you know, Cecilia's already made history, and Katie Taylor is in the process of making history independent of each other. So you'll excuse me for saying that I'm not a fan of that fight. I hope it doesn't come off. I'd much rather see the champions at 140 mix it up with each other. And whichever one is still standing when the smoke clears, that's the champion that I would like to see Katie Taylor fight, if she at some point moves up to the 140-pound division. But I want it to be a gradual climb, not a climb that's simply motivated behind bright lights and marquee fights. Because a fight between Katie and Cecilia, I don't see the point. Two divisions, what, we're going to do the dare to be great thing again? If you ask me what I want to see for both of these fighters, I want to see Katie Taylor stay the course. And what I would like to see from Cecilia Brækhus, an accomplished fighter, a fighter that you really can't complain about. If you know anything about the people that she's fought, you'll understand that. And you'll understand that she's achieving a level of notoriety now,
After taking out the competition,
that the work has already been done. Thus, the opponent choices are far and few. That if there were any interesting opponents out there for her to have fought in front of a lot of people, now that people are paying attention, the issue is she likely fought them already. So 147 doesn't have a lot to offer her. But I'll tell you this much. If I felt like there was anything left to do, it would maybe be a climb to junior middleweight. There are 3 world champions up there, and there's a vacant title up there. Cecilia Brækhus could easily go up there, pick up that vacant WBO title against some contender, and then have a unification fight with a Marie-Eve Decoeur, a Hannah Gabriels, or an Eva Pietrzkowska. That makes more sense to me than her going down there to fight, you know, Katie Taylor at 140 or worse, Katie Taylor jumping all the way up there to 147 to fight her for those belts. It makes more sense to me that Cecilia cap off what has already been an excellent career by going up there to junior middleweight and seeing if she can do it again. If she chooses not to, great. I mean, whatever. She doesn't have anything to prove at this point. She's already the most accomplished woman boxer in the history of women boxers. There's not much left to prove after that. But if you ask me what I'd rather see, I would rather see her go up to junior middleweight than take on Katie Taylor. Just one man's opinion. In other news, Top Rank recently announced 2 rematches that they've got coming up on May 11th. The first being the rematch between WBC champion Miguel Berchelt and Francisco Vargas, and the rematch between former WBO champion Isaac Dogboe and current WBO champion Emmanuel Navarret. And the latter is the rematch that really has my attention. I am very much intrigued to see what's going to happen when these two guys lock horns yet again. You know, that first fight between Isaac Dogboe and Emmanuel Navarret was a very punishing fight for Isaac. That was a fight where he took a lot of punishment. It went the full course. It went the full 12 rounds. And even though that shows that Isaac's got the heart of a champion and he's got a lot of intestinal fortitude, at the same time, going 12 rounds in what is a very punishing fight, a fight where you're taking a lot of flush shots, going 12 rounds in a fight like that, it's the kind of thing that could leave you irreparably damaged. It's the kind of thing that could leave you changed to the point where you're no longer able to compete at the same level you used to before that fight.
Career altering.
That sometimes, but not always, but sometimes, a fight like that can greatly affect a fighter's career, that it can be a career altering beating. And that is the question that hangs over this fight. On one end, Isaac Dogboe may have taken such a beating that he's irreparably damaged. But on the other end of the spectrum, Isaac Dogboe is a young guy. He's only 24 years old, the same way as Emmanuel Navarret is only 24 years old. He's a young guy. He's young enough that even a loss like that is something that he can bounce back from. The question is that what's going to happen? On May 11th, are we going to see Isaac Dogboe bounce back from the loss, or are we going to see him get bounced off the canvas by the much taller, much more statuesque Emmanuel Navarret? That's really the question that hangs over this fight, because those are two possible and plausible scenarios that are polar opposites. Maybe Isaac Dogboe, he might have got beat to the point the way he don't got it anymore. On the other end, he is a young enough guy that, yes, it was a hard fight, but it's something he can recover from and bounce back. It's a fair question. What are we going to see on May 11th? That first fight, it seemed to me that Isaac was choosing to fight fire with fire. That rather than working around the aggression of what was the much taller, much more statuesque fighter in the fight, he chose to battle the guy back. And opening up on the guy that much is what costed Isaac that fight. That Isaac, choosing to fight fire with fire and meet Navarret's aggression with aggression of his own, that made it a big train, little train situation. That's what gave the fight its aesthetic, that he's not working around what Navarret is doing, rather, he's engaging him in it, and he's taking punishment as a result of that. You're the smaller guy. You've got to be in the kill box, the danger zone, to do anything. But when you're in there, you're opening up so much that this guy's landing some hard shots on you. And unless Isaac Dogboe has grown 5 inches from the last time these two guys fought,
It's more or less same situation.
ahead of the rematch, he's still going to be the significantly shorter guy in the fight, and that greatly affects
Area of opportunity.
the area of operations. That's saying that Isaac Dogboe, no matter how you slice it, to get off any of his punches, he's going to have to be fighting Navarret in the pocket, within the line of fire, within striking distance. So the question then becomes, what can Isaac Dogboe do differently in a rematch that he didn't do in a first fight? And I'll tell you what I think, just one man's opinion. What it might take for Isaac Dogboe to reclaim that WBO title is judicious punching. You don't go in there like a machine gun. You go in there like a sniper. You work off the counter. You already know how aggressive this guy is. You already know that this guy's looking to mix it up. He wants to steamroll you. He wants to overwhelm you. So rather than engaging him in a firefight, you work off the counter. You focus on defense, head movement, upper body movement, angling yourself away from the shots to land counter shots.
Expedite aggression.
He's got to expedite his aggression while working deep within the pocket. It's not always the easiest thing to do when you're facing a machine gun shooter like Emmanuel Navarret, but it is something that can be done, and that kind of aggression can be worked around. For an example, I defer you to Tevin Farmer, IBF champion at 130 pounds, a guy who's no stranger to fighting a machine gun shooter. I mean, we just saw that in the John O'Carroll fight. John O'Carroll threw something like 1,000 punches in that fight, but they were all punches that Tevin Farmer was able to work around, and that was deep in the pocket, angling his head, angling his upper body, throwing those earmuffs on, and knowing when to shoot the counter shots. Essentially, you don't let the guy suck you into a war.
That's the idea.
You pick your spots, and I think that that's what Isaac Dogboe is going to have to do ahead of this rematch with Navarret. And yet another thing I think he's going to have to do is he's going to have to go to this guy's midsection. There was an awful lot of head hunting in the first fight. Isaac Dogboe would have to hyperextend himself each time just to touch this guy on the chin because, well, the guy's a lot taller than you are. And as you're doing that, you're opening up. You're lining yourself up for his power shots. So rather than reaching all the way up there to land a shot that may or may not do any damage because, well, Navarret has never been stopped. He's only got one professional loss that was a 4-rounder many years ago. But for what it's worth, this guy's not chinny. You understand? So this guy can take a shot. Rather than hyperextending to land a shot that may or may not do the kind of damage that you wanted to, target this guy's midsection. Attack the body, and the head will fall off. Isaac Dogboe, being the smaller fighter in the fight, he's in line to target Navarrette's midsection. Something very similar to what we saw with Canelo and Rocky Fielding. He's a much taller guy. His body is closer to you than his head. So mix up the punches, but make a conscientious effort to go to this guy's midsection so that he doesn't have much steam left in those mid-rounds. We all know that a concentrated attack to the body early on can greatly diminish the other guy's energy levels, his stamina, his wherewithal late. So I think it behooves Dogboe to focus on this guy's midsection. Go there, and if he starts dropping his hands to protect himself, then you go back upstairs and you make him pay for it. But what you don't want to do, is headhunt the guy, because you headhunt this guy and you're lining yourself up for his shots. Understand that Emmanuel Navarrete has 26 professional wins, and 22 of them came by way of knockout. So this is clearly not a guy that you want hitting you. So Isaac has got to limit those opportunities. He can't keep giving Navarrete the chance to use his size and use his power. Those things in mind, I also think Isaac is going to have to really fight this fight on the balls of his feet. Stay nimble, stay mobile, and
move around.
Don't stay in one place. Don't make yourself an easy target for this guy. Because with this guy being as aggressive as he is, he's going to try to drown you, and it's up to you to decide when you want to come up for air. You do your business in the pocket, and then you bounce out of range to catch a breather, because all that action is going to wear on Isaac's stamina the same way it would on Navarrete's. I'm telling you, this is a very intriguing matchup. We don't know what's going to happen, but I look forward to finding out.